The ocean keeps its secrets well. Hundreds of feet below the surface, in a cold darkness no sunlight has ever touched, it swallows noise and memory alike. Ships pass overhead. Storms rage above. But down there, deep in the stillness, it is always quiet, which is why no one heard the explosion. No scream, no distress call. Just one moment, there was a submarine with 44 crew members aboard. And the next, there was nothing at all. No trace, no signal, no answer. The ARA San Juan had vanished. It was November 15, 2017, and the submarine had been on a routine patrol off the coast of Argentina, traveling northward toward her home base at Mar del Plata. The weather was poor. Visibility was limited, but the crew was seasoned, the vessel seaworthy, and the mission unremarkable. Until it wasn't. At 7:19 a.m., the San Juan transmitted a final message. Seawater had entered through the snorkel and reached the battery compartment, causing a short circuit and what the Navy would later refer to as the beginning of a fire. The fire had been contained. They were submerged, switching to another battery bank. Everything was under control. Then the line went dead. Forever. The ARA San Juan was a TR-1700 class diesel-electric submarine built in Germany and delivered to Argentina in 1985. At the time, it was state-of-the-art, nearly 220 feet long, capable of diving over 1,000 feet, and able to stay submerged for nearly 2 weeks. Argentina planned to build more in the class, but only 2 were ever completed. By 2007, San Juan was overdue for a major overhaul. The job was supposed to take 2 years. It took 7. Part of the refit involved cutting the submarine in half to remove and replace its batteries, roughly 960 in total, and inspect the diesel engines. It was an invasive, complicated procedure, and it had only been completed in 2014. 3 years later, the sub was operational again. Argentina's Navy was in poor shape overall, with many of its ships and aircraft suffering from decades of underfunding. But the San Juan was considered one of its most capable vessels, and so she was sent out again on another routine patrol. The submarine departed from Ushuaia on November 8th, tasked with monitoring Argentine waters for illegal fishing vessels and potentially foreign submarines. The seas around the South Atlantic were known to be rich with marine life and shadowy foreign interests. Nothing in her orders foreshadowed the catastrophe ahead. On November 14th, the submarine was northbound, just off the coast of Patagonia. Around midnight, it surfaced to snorkel, running its diesel engines to recharge the batteries. But during this process, seawater entered the ventilation system, reaching the forward battery compartment. What happened next is still debated. According to the Navy's own report, hydrogen gas was released, triggering a short circuit and the beginning of a fire. The crew shut down the affected battery bank and switched to a backup. The fire was reported as contained. No emergency was declared. At 7:19 a.m. on November 15th, the submarine sent a follow-up message confirming the issue, their location, and their heading toward Mar del Plata. That was the last anyone heard from them. What followed was a national nightmare. When San Juan missed its scheduled check-in, the Navy launched a search and rescue mission. By the following day, 13 countries had joined the effort. The United States sent specialized aircraft and deep-sea equipment. Russia dispatched an advanced oceanographic vessel. The United Kingdom offered sonar equipment and underwater detection systems. Even private companies joined in. The search zone expanded quickly. Sonobuoys were deployed. Planes crisscrossed the southern Atlantic. Ships from across the world scanned the seafloor. For weeks, hope flickered in the eyes of the families gathered at the naval base, desperate for any sign. In those early days, every sonar ping, every vague trace, every underwater noise brought speculation. Maybe the sub had lost power. Maybe the crew was still alive, rationing air and battery. Maybe they were waiting in darkness for help to arrive. But hope turned to dread when the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, a body tasked with detecting nuclear tests worldwide, revealed it had picked up a hydroacoustic anomaly near the San Juan's last known position. The detection, recorded just 3 hours after the sub's last message, was consistent with an underwater explosion. An implosion, to be precise. Sudden, catastrophic, deep. It had occurred nearly a kilometer beneath the surface. If that was the San Juan, then there had been no survivors. Still, the search continued. 1 year passed. Then, on November 17th, 2018, almost exactly to the day, a private company named Ocean Infinity located the wreck. It was over 900 meters deep, nearly 3,000 feet, off the coast of Argentina. The images were chilling. The pressure hull had collapsed. The bow had been twisted violently. The conning tower was partially buried. The hull had broken into multiple pieces. Debris was scattered across the seabed. The implosion had happened with such force that the entire vessel folded in on itself. Experts concluded that the submarine had likely exceeded its crush depth following the battery fire and flooding. As it descended uncontrollably, the increasing pressure had caused the hull to implode. Death would have been instantaneous. The Argentine public demanded answers. Grief turned to outrage. Families accused the Navy of negligence, of sending a vessel into dangerous conditions with known defects. Some alleged a cover-up. Others called for criminal investigations. The president, Mauricio Macri, faced growing scrutiny. In early investigations, troubling details emerged. The Navy had known about the battery issues. The refit had been rushed and incomplete. The snorkel valve had previously malfunctioned. Some communication protocols had been poorly followed in the hours before the disappearance, and critically, the vessel had only been using one battery bank during the return leg, limiting options in case of further malfunction. One officer admitted that the situation had been misjudged. There were no emergency pings from the submarine, no distress beacon. Either they had no time to deploy it, or it simply didn't work. Among the 44 crew members aboard was Eliana Maria Krauchik, the first female submarine officer in Argentina, and indeed in most of Latin America. Born in a small town in Misiones province, far from the sea, Eliana had found her calling at the Navy Academy. She rose through the ranks quickly and had dreamed of serving aboard the San Juan since her training days. She once said, "There's no greater peace than being under the sea, knowing that you're part of something bigger." Her death marked a symbolic blow to a nation already grieving. Across Argentina, murals were painted. Streets were renamed. Her face became a symbol of quiet courage. To many, she represented the very best of a country struggling to make peace with its loss. In 2021, a federal judge indicted several Navy officials for dereliction of duty, including Admiral Marcelo Sroor, who had served as chief of the Navy at the time of the disaster. But no one has been convicted. For the families of the dead, justice remains elusive. The wreck of the ARA San Juan remains where it was found, untouched, unraised. Argentina has stated it will not attempt a salvage operation, calling the site a war grave. To this day, the government holds periodic memorials. Families still visit the base at Mar del Plata, where the submarine was meant to return. Some still sleep in their cars there, as they did in those early days, waiting for news, waiting for closure. The sea does not easily give up its dead. What little is known about those final moments comes from sound signatures and metal fragments. The rest, how the crew reacted, what they tried, who held whom as the lights failed, is lost in the black. But one thing is certain: the crew of the San Juan died doing their duty. They were sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, engineers, cooks, navigators, patriots. And beneath 3,000 feet of silence, they remained together. Thank you for listening to the Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.